What's up, everybody? This is Brad. Welcome to Sports Magazine Collector. Today, I'm going to share 3 recent signs that show the hobby of graded sports magazines is growing. Let's check it out. All right, so if you've seen my other videos, you have heard me say that I'm confident this hobby will continue to grow bigger than it is right now. The rarity, the nostalgia, the awesomeness, the similarities to cards and comics, it all just makes too much sense to me. So today I'm going to share 3 recent signs that in my eyes show the hobby is actually in a state of growth right now. Collectible is an online investment marketplace that allows anyone to own fractional shares of high value offerings. They specialize in sports memorabilia, such as highly valuable sports cards, and the fractional ownership allows many people to share ownership in one single item. For example, Collectible recently sold shares for a heavyweight title belt that was won by Muhammad Ali after the Rumble in the Jungle. It closed a little bit above $299,000 and it sold at $7 per share. Now, shortly after, another Ali title belt actually sold on Heritage Auctions for $6.18 million. This caused really quick growth in the title belt that was on Collectible, and it allowed investors to see some really quick gains on their shares. So earlier this week, Collectibles sold shares of their first ever graded sports magazine. The issue was a 9.4 Wayne Gretzky first cover, and the overall price was $37,500, with initial shares going for $10 a piece. Now, you may remember that in February of this year, this exact same magazine sold on Heritage Auctions for $30,000. There's only 2 9.4s in existence of this issue, and I know this is the same one that sold on Heritage because I was able to match up the certification numbers on the slab. So this is a really big deal, not only because the price of this Gretzky issue basically rose from $30,000 to $37,500 in just 6 months, but also that Collectible chose this as one of their items to sell off. By doing so, they are basically making a bet that this is an item that will grow in value. And in the same token, they're basically affirming that they see major worth in the graded Sports Illustrated hobby. Collectibles website says this word for word. As lifelong collectors, we understand how frustrating it is to not be able to acquire scarce and desirable items that we believe will appreciate in value, but are simply unaffordable and out of reach. Collectible now allows anyone to participate in the same high-end sports memorabilia investment opportunities accessible to wealthy investors. They also go on to say, Collectibles team, along with our advisory board of industry-wide experts with decades of experience, carefully handpicks our offerings based on desirability, scarcity, market demand, and authenticity. So once again, this is the first time that a graded sports magazine has been selected as an item to sell off on Collectible. And that to me is a really big deal, which signals some growth in the hobby. We've talked before about how Heritage Auctions is a great place to sell or purchase high-end Sports Illustrated magazines. The 3 highest sales to ever take place on Heritage were the Gretzky in 2022, which went for $30,000, a Tom Brady 9.8, which sold for $13,800 in March of 2022, and a 1954 first issue at 9.8, which sold for $11,100 in 2021. Since 2016, it's pretty common for at least one big CGC graded Sports Illustrated magazine to be listed each month, but this month it's different. There are multiple monster issues up for auction, a couple of which have a legitimate shot at breaking the Wayne Gretzky record. Cassius Clay first cover 9.2, estimated at about $25,000. Mickey Mantle first cover 9.0, also estimated at $25,000. A LeBron James first cover, 9.8, estimated at $7,000. Mike Trout first cover, graded at 9.8, estimated at $15,000. Kobe Bryant first cover, 9.8, estimated at $8,000. And a Mario Lemieux first cover, 9.8, estimated at $10,000. That is 6 enormous issues. There are still 23 days left in the building. The Ollie and Mantle are both already at $12,000 bids each, and all the others are at least $3,000. So the fact that all of these issues are up for sale at the same time, I think is a really positive sign. The handful of collectors who hold the best issues have mostly just been sitting on them up to this point. But now to see some of these top dogs go for sale, it means that the sellers feel that now is a good time to fetch a good return. And when some of these sales go final with really big numbers, it's just going to continue raising eyebrows and getting more people familiar with the graded Sports Illustrateds. The third sign that indicates growth in the hobby is the number of Sports Illustrated issues that CGC has been grading. Let's take a look at the year-by-year data for how many Sports Illustrated magazines CGC has been grading. I've shared before that the first SI magazine was graded in 2009, so it took a few years for people to kind of catch on. We're going to start looking at 2016. So in the year 2016, a total of 515 Sports Illustrated magazines were graded by CGC. The following year, that jumped up to 842. 2018, you had 899, and 2019, you had 801. So there for about a 3-year stretch, it was pretty flat. Now, 2020, obviously, that's when the pandemic happened. That's when you had a big growth in a lot of the collectibles because people had more time at home. People had some dispensable income. So there was a jump there from 801 to 1,203 that were graded in 2020. The following year, you had an even bigger jump. So in 2021, a total of 2,390 Sports Illustrated magazines were graded by CGC. So that basically was double from the year before. Well, now let's look at 2022. Through the first 6 months of the year, CGC has graded 3,960 Sports Illustrated magazines. So that is only half of the year. Let's just go ahead and double that. Let's assume that it keeps the same pace. We are looking at right around 8,000 graded Sports Illustrated magazines for this year. That would mean that in 2022 alone, CGC has graded 34% of the Sports Illustrateds that they've ever done. And that would be a 234% increase from last year, from 2021. So that is massive growth, and it tells me that more and more people are catching on to how amazing this hobby is. So there you have it. 3 recent signs that indicate to me that graded Sports Illustrateds are growing in popularity. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'm confident that this hobby is still in the early stages, and it will continue to steadily grow. Look at the numbers on comics. Look at the numbers on sports cards. This is basically a combination of those two hobbies. Then consider how scarce these issues are, how much nostalgia they inspire. It is easy for me to see why this will get bigger, and hopefully some of you will see these signs as well. So let me know what you think. Drop some comments below. Like, subscribe. I have lots more content headed your way on the topic of sports magazine collecting. All right, time for trivia. In the last video, I asked the question, who was featured on the cover of the first ever issue of Sports Illustrated for Kids? And the answer to that is Michael Jordan. Now for today's question. Before Michael Jordan was ever featured on the cover of Sports Illustrated, he was actually included inside of the magazine in one of the Faces in the Crowd sections in 1981. Which Hall of Fame athlete was on the cover of this issue? Drop your answer in the comments, and if you were the first to answer correctly, I'll give you a shout out in my next video, and we'll see you guys next time.